We stop. Am I ready to get going here?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Let's
Yes.
All right.
let's jump in.
All right. All right.
So,
Recording in progress.
oh, great. We're being recorded. I forgot about that. Everyone, welcome to Skillet. So, today I'd like to introduce you to Brian Schuster. He is a self-taught developer with over 10 years of experience in software development and infrastructure. He's currently working as an engineering manager at IBM. His background includes analytics, cloud computing, DevOps, and blockchain technology. And in 2019, Brian started Schusterian Careers to help other self taught developers and career changers connect with the tech industry and find careers they love. So, a little bit about this session. A job description is more than just a summary of the role. In this skillet, Schuster is going to explain how a job description can give us clues and insights about the company culture, organizational values, required versus desired skills, and more. And in this session, we'll also take a look at real job descriptions for IBM positions and read between the lines to better understand what the job entails and how we can position ourselves to be the standout candidate. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Brian Schuster. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, Lucy, I'm very excited to be able to do this. And I'm very excited to be able to talk about this because there's a lot that I help folks with looking for at resumes where I'm trying to piece out, like, how do I help position you, and I'm really looking at you and thinking about the position. But there's a lot you can get from understanding the job description and understanding the company. So I'm really glad to get a chance to be able to share that with you folks today. So I guess I'll start off by saying that because of where you are in your careers, you're very focused in on the experience of being a developer looking for a position. You're breaking into the industry. So you very much have that mindset of, I'm trying to get in, I'm competing against a whole bunch of other people. I feel qualified in some areas, underqualified elsewhere. And you kind of forget where you're actually going into. You forget that you're moving into a marketplace. So to start off, before I really get into the specifics of any details here, I want to get into what it's like on the other side. So how exactly do you think like a hiring manager, and looking at that? So take a step back for a second and look at somebody who's hiring in technology and look at their position. You have a team. You probably already have people working for you to some level. You need to hire additional people on that team, and you have a myriad of problems you're trying to solve. You have application features you need to get out there. You have infrastructure problems. You have security. You have new technology that you're responsible for delivering. And then you have innovations that are coming down the line, like artificial intelligence and, newer SRE technologies. You're wondering, how should we hire? And so for me, I'm trying to figure out what's the best job description I can put out there. How do I write this to get people interested in me? And how do I write stuff that I'm finding the right people to join my team? Because it's a very intensive process hiring people. I mean, just to hire one position out on my team, I had to have something like review 20 or 30 some odd resumes, had to go through tons of initial interviews, lots of, stress and heartbreak along the way. So it's not easy. So when I go and write a job description and anyone goes and writes this, to you see this world where it's like, oh, lots of people are getting hired and, it's not me. I just want a chance to do this. But for me, I'm just saying, I just need somebody qualified to apply to my position. Hell, half qualified to apply to my position. I'm trying to get someone. And so when I write that description down, I'm really trying to figure out, how do I get you there? It's kind of like, we understand this, we look at like markets like, grocery stores, for example. And I'm trying to buy something that's on the shelf there, right? There's two sides. There are the people buying on one side where it's like, oh, what brand of cereal am I going to do? I'm going to do healthy, sugary. Do I want something for the kids or for myself? What do I do? And then you have all these boxes and choices, and your dollars are being spent to do something. But then on the other side of that, you have all these different brands and all these different people trying to figure out, how do I get you interested in me? How do I get you interested in what I'm doing? And what I do there, and it's really this tussle between these two sides, trying to figure out, how do I get people noticing me? And even though you're going into, a different place where you're not selling a product, but you're selling your hours yourself, it's the exact same dynamic. I'm trying to attract as many great candidates as I can so I can get a good choice, and you're trying to get as many companies interested in you so you can get better revenue, so you can get, a better salary, so you can get better opportunities. So when you think about that, I'm trying to write out and really just trying to do what is necessary to fill that position. And so there's a number of strategies to be able to do that, and make that happen. I write good stuff about my company. I make the job description clear. I talk to the recruiter and I try to figure out what exactly are the right mix of, skills that I can ask for. Like I want to ask for, let me admit this person. I want to ask for the right person, like, can I ask for this much? Like I need someone who knows SRE and AI or these other skills. And really because you have those mixtures, you're constantly compromising and getting down. So that's one side of it where I'm not always getting everything I look for. I'm trying to go for roles that I actually know I can hire for. It's kind of like if you go to the grocery store and you see a brand new type of cereal that's sold in milk cartons or something crazy. Like, your brand product person will say, no, you can't do that because no one's going to buy cereal that way. You need to have it, in a box designed that way. And that's a lot of the process. You also have other people you're serving along the way, especially if you work inside of a big company. I don't get to choose exactly what goes out there. I kind of have to ask my recruiter what I'm allowed to do, partially because I want to figure out what I need to do, what their opinion is, like what do you think I can do to hire the best candidate, partially because there's other requirements. There's compliance reasons why I need to put stuff on there. There's legal requirements that I need to put in that I may not have thought of. There may be stuff that's literally not legal for me to say or do. And even though it's something that I want to put down there, a recruiter is going to say, nope, bad idea. You can't do this. That's one group that's out there. And then finally, IBM as an organization wants to hire their own people. They want to go out and they want to get the best talent. So they influence what goes into the job description. So what ends up happening is you get the hiring manager and my thoughts where I'm trying to compete to get the best talent my way. And then you have all these intermediaries that sit between me and you that have their input, their influence, and elsewhere, and all these other details that go into the job description until eventually you get to the job description you see. And it ends up being something very different than the job itself. So let's start by looking at one random job description I just happened to pull off. This is, I believe, for a cloud engineer. And this is not supposed to be legible to you guys. This is just for comparison. You'll see what I'm doing. But it ended up being something like 6 pages. So if you had to guess roughly, same number in your head, like what percentage of this do you think is actually relevant to the job itself if you took a glance? When I first started off, I thought 80, 90% of this was written by me. Maybe there's some compliance stuff that's there. But most of this is probably the hiring manager. And then I actually looked at this and I decided, well, which of this was actually written by somebody? And it's that percentage roughly that was even touched by the hiring manager. Everything else you see on the screen was there because of a compliance reason. It was a corporate decision. A brand manager decided to put there. So it really doesn't tell you anything about the job itself. It may tell you a little bit about the company, but at the same time, it's talking about the company at a very high level, not the sort of personal level you want to know, like you're going to work for somebody. It's going to tell you about IBM, not Brian Schuster, one of my engineering peers. But even still, even though I wrote all that section, not all that is going to be super relevant. Let's cut this down. Here are the 3 sections that would actually be written by the hiring manager, so we cut down by half. If I had to read this and tell you which are the ones that are really important, I mean the ones that you need to zero in on and really to help start making a decision, it's even less. There's a little bit of the role description, some details, who you are and what you do, that end up being really, really important to the role. So you start off with this giant resume that sits out there that could fill 6 pages on the screen and get down to something that looks like a couple of paragraphs. And it's only those couple of paragraphs that you really need to focus in on. So from me, as a hiring manager, there's really only a few things that I'm really reading for when I read your resume that are top of mind that are there. One, it's going to be the high-level description. If you read a description and you read the first page that says, in this job, you will, and that's written out, you can take that to the bank. That's what I'm looking for on my team. If you can't fulfill that requirement, most of the time, it's not the right role for you. It's something else entirely. So if they talk about doing consulting, you can bet there's going to be consulting. If you say you're talking to end users, it's going to be a lot of talking to end users. If it's all deep technical work, it's going to be deep technical work. There's not a lot of line there. So the top level role description, that's very important. The top 3 to 4 responsibilities are going to be really important for the role. If you get a list of 10 or 20 responsibilities, it's not to say that other things don't matter, but those top 3 to 4 are the ones that are almost necessary, have to have for you to move forward with that role and what you do. If you don't have those responsibilities, even if you fill a lot of the other requirements, it's not going to matter. Same thing can be said about the top 3 to 4 required skills. So responsibility says you will do this in the job, and it'll give you details about what that is. But the required skills will say you need to have an understanding of Kubernetes. You need to have worked in a CI/CD pattern. You need to have Angular experience. You need to be very comfortable with APIs. Whatever the top ones listed, those are the ones that are going to be the most important. I'm not sure if you guys anyone here has ever done anything with journalism, but they teach you, as a journalist, they teach you most important information at the top, rank ordered by the level of importance. And every single section on a resume is going to be written that way. Number 1 is going to be most important, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. Even if you have 50 things, you can use that ranking to get a rough idea of what actually matters. If somebody goes into your resume and gives you stuff like location, where it's actually located. If they give a visa status, we do or do not hire F1s, we do or do not hire H1Bs. You can take that to the bank. Anything that is listed as a must-have. Remember, part of my job is to try to convince you to come work for me. So if I'm willing to stop in the middle of my sales pitch, put in bold letters, we do not hire people who are outside of the finance industry, or must have medical experience to apply here, that's going to be a non-starter. There's sometimes that they say it's preferred or something else. That's okay. You may not have experience there, but that's okay to apply. But if you don't have that main thing, that one thing that says must have this, and you're not there, you're not going to get looked at. That's really important. That's almost never a mistake. And then those are really the big ones. You may have, there are definitely going to be other things that are going to help you in the role. Like, just because 3 to 4 are the most important, 1 through 4 are the most important, doesn't mean that 5 through 10 don't get a look at. But you could have 5 through 10 nailed down. And if you don't have anything in 1 through 4 that matters or that you can talk about, you're going to have a very tough time getting the job, because it's really that stuff at the top that ends up mattering. Now, those are the things that really matter. But let's talk a little bit about what ends up being flexible. Now, just because I wrote, I need you to have 1, 2, 3, 4, you might think if I don't hit all of those things, or if I don't have the right years of experience, it's going to actually, negatively impact me. But the truth is, actually, you have a much better chance than you expect. First off, you need to know you don't need to fit the role perfectly. Now, back in, I believe it was 2018, this company called TalentWorks was doing this longitudinal research into a bunch of job descriptions. And they would look at people who ended up getting the job and then seeing what percentage of the role that they actually filled out, and, did they get the job or didn't get the job, how they fit it. And they found that people who did 0% of the role got 0% of the jobs. That's not weird. They found that if you hit 50%, there was some percentage that they hit. Maybe it was like 5% ended up getting the job, or 10%, some percentage. But then they went up and they saw that somebody who hits 90% of the role description. So the person who hits 50% of the job description, 90% hits 90%, has an equal chance of getting hired as somebody who hits 50%. After a certain point, it stops helping. And there's even evidence out there, I mean, it's really early research, but that if you hit over 90%, you actually have less of a chance of getting the job than somebody who just hits at 90%. That's very likely due to being overqualified for the position or other reasons. But the truth is, there seems to be a sweet spot between 50% and 90%. But this is information to you guys. So if you see a position where you hit 2 out of the top 4, you think, oh, I'm not qualified. No, actually, you may be perfectly qualified for the position. You may actually get quite a lot out of it if you go off and apply there. So when I say the top is the most important, you don't feel like you have to hit all 1 through 4. You need to hit something. You need to make a good case on why they should be looking at you, because they're going to be spending time talking to you. But if you don't hit all of them, that's okay. You can be flexible there, because as long as you hit about 50% roughly, you're in a pretty good place to make it to the next round. The next thing, you don't have to have enough years of experience to do that. And we've all heard the stories of like entry level 3 to 5 years of experience. Ignore that. This was a friend of mine, actually. He's a CTO, and he actually wrote this job description. I had a chuckle because he said, for those job seekers looking for entry roles, I know it says 2 years, but ignore that. Apply anyways. Basically, that's kind of the advice. If somebody says they're looking for entry level roles, but it says 2 years, just ignore that side of it. Instead, I prefer things like rough ranges of roles when talking to people who go. And this is very, very rough. But instead of thinking an exact number of years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 or whatever, I like to think in this. If they're asking for 0 to 1 years, it's a junior position, or it's an internship or a co-op. Those are definitely like very early career, don't have a lot of experience. They maybe ask for 1, but they clearly know they're going to have to train for someone. I usually think of somebody with 1 to 3 years of experience, starting to get kind of junior, but also starting to be a little bit of mid-level, particularly for some of those secondary roles, for example. Like if you have an SRE, for example, we'll ask for 5 years of software development experience, but I'll ask you for 3 years of Kubernetes. That's a good mid-level role. 3 to 5 is senior, 5 to 10 you're kind of the team lead, expert, SME, and then 10 plus years you're kind of at an executive level position. Those are the rough ranges I use there, and I do mean truly rough. Like I've seen people who when they're applying to jobs that say you need 3+ years of experience, and they have only 6 months of good relevant experience, and it ends up being enough. They say, oh, okay. Because just because I say in my top must have Angular, must have Kubernetes or whatever, you don't know what the right mixture is that organization's looking for. They say 2 to 4 years or 2 to 3 years, but truth is, it's kind of a crapshoot on our side. We may get somebody who has like 3 years of software experience and only like 6 months of Docker and 6 months of Kubernetes, and we said 3+ years, but the truth is actually that person it's close enough. We're willing to talk to them. And so if you're going to see those positions, don't super worry about the time. You do need to worry about big differences. Like if you have only a month of experience in Kubernetes or 6 months, and the position calls for 5+ years, and it's clearly a senior level position, they call it senior, that's when you might think, okay, I'm definitely, underqualified. This is definitely, if I'm applying to this is a stretch role. But, I may still do it. But if you're looking for like mid-level, senior level, and it's asking for more experience than you have, go ahead and apply anyway. Doesn't mean as much as you think. So the next thing, your other experiences, add them to your resume. So when you apply to a job and you say, I'm applying to a full stack developer position, I'm applying to an SRE or whatever position it might be, you definitely need to make the top of your resume look perfect for the role. That is non-negotiable. If you're applying to full stack developer, you should look full stack. If you're applying to a business analyst, you need to look like a business analyst. And the top of your resume needs to speak that level. That needs to speak that language. But as you get down the resume, and I've had this pretty much every single time I've looked at a resume, I always like seeing non-traditional, interesting backgrounds. I always love seeing them. I love seeing the story. If I see somebody who was a software engineer but then was part of a band, that's an interesting story. If I see somebody who was a server for 5 years and got great, rave reviews, and all of a sudden now is in full stack development, I like seeing that information. If I've seen people who hey, I was a teacher and now I'm moving in. It tells an interesting story. It makes you compelling. As a matter of fact, one of the guys who just got promoted inside of my organization was a Bootcamp graduate who was a teacher, and he went into software development. He was there for a year, and when his manager came to basically say why should he be getting a band promotion, he said, man, having a teacher on our team has been awesome. I mean, their background as a teacher really made them very, very well aligned to be a mentor to the team, somebody who was willing to educate. Their background ended up being something that we really liked. And you don't know. You don't know what the team's missing. You don't know what those soft skills are, particularly if you end up having a story that goes around, like you went from teaching to being a developer, or you were a doctor and now you're a UX designer. Whatever your unique background is, put those details in. Put those interesting information, even if they're not 100% relevant. The top needs to be perfect to the position. It needs to be very close to what they're looking at. But down the line, you get yourself interesting, and that makes people want to connect with you. And that's really the big thing here. I haven't said it yet, but I want to make sure that this is clear. When you write your resume, you are not writing a resume to get the job. You are writing the resume to get that first interview. 100%. You are not trying to do anything else with that. I know for all of my positions, I basically, after the first interview, I've stopped watching them. I stopped looking at them. They get looked at. They allow me to ask interesting questions. They allow me to decide if I want to hire this person or if I want to see this person. But once I talk to you, I'm truly talking to you. I'm thinking about your experience. I'm thinking about how you interact with the team. I'm thinking about how you do on the coding challenges. I'm thinking about how you handle challenging questions when we try to push you. I'm not looking at your resume. It's a very flat view compared to the person that's sitting in front of me. So you're writing the resume to get that interest. And this, more than anything else, makes you interesting. So, and then finally, don't worry about trying to showcase your soft skills or culture fit in your resume. I see a lot of people try to struggle over writing a summary that really details how you're a team player and or how you have some sort of you're looking for a culture that is warm and inviting, whatever. It doesn't help during the resume process. Because anytime, again, the same way I'm writing a job description to give you the need to know information, you're writing a resume to give me give your employers the need to know information about your background. If you're spending a lot of time talking about soft skills and other things, again, not bad things to mention, but not really great to harp on, because that's why I have an interview. Your resume is there to tell me if I want to bring you in and start talking to you, if I want to ask you questions. The interview is then for your soft skills to be like, okay, well, if let's make sure, one, what you said is true. Two, let's make sure you actually play well with the team. Let's make sure you actually fit with the culture of the organization. Let's make sure something's not there. Now, there are ways to sense out if they're a good cultural fit, if it's an organization you want to work for. And it's not in the place you expect. It's not in that section that the organization, that the organization writes itself, like the top section I mentioned before. It's in the subtle details, and you need to read between the lines to understand what type of culture it is. Somebody who says 24/7 hourly rotation might tell you something about culture. Somebody who explicitly does not include anything about work-life fit or work hard, play hard sort of thing, you get an idea of what sort of organization it is. And that's not good or bad. That's just a culture designation, is whether or not it matches up with you. But during the resume process, it's all about getting that first interview. Once you get that, you can open it up and start asking those questions, getting and getting that good feedback from the organization. But during this time, it's really just about the role. And so that's the end of the beginning of the presentation. I hope that information was useful. Now I'm about to go into the resumes, but before I do that, does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to ask, about the presentation?
I have a question here.
Please.
But probably you'll cover it in the resume section. So you were mentioning that at some experience, even though it's not really direct related to the job description. And also, I think I heard people say that try to narrow down your resume to one page.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance that?
You make dense resumes is the first way I would recommend. Basically, I mean, when I see a one-page resume that is just chock full of text, it's a really, really good sign. It's something that I appreciate and like. So I would say definitely abide by that one-page rule if you can, but try to find the most information-dense format that you can to add in those details. Because here's the thing, like when you turn in your resume there, your resume itself is one page, but the truth is that a lot of that stuff gets copy and pasted and put into a word processor for me. And I get to see it through another thing, and it just ends up looking like, I don't know, 12-point font. It gets fixed and it ends up being as long as it needs to. And that's never a problem. But I would say, one thing you can do is experiment with different styles. And even if you find a format you like, again, I like seeing the very traditional dense text format. Those, even more than the really pretty visual ones, get my attention because it shows you have something to say, you have a lot of details, there's a lot to dive into here. Again, it makes me want to talk to you. I feel like I have to pull you into a meeting for me to understand everything that's there. That's a good thing. Still has to be relevant to the job, still has to give detail, but at least it's moving that direction. The other part is experimenting with, what actually goes in on the page, and then like tweaking formats. Like sometimes people put like their GPA and a bunch of details into their college description or their project, but then they start doing it and realize, man, like this is not I can just put a line about my education, and then my education section can be this big, which gives me then a whole 2 inches then to go into my project work that I'm really proud of, or gives me to talk about something in my non-traditional background that I got a good sense was, I had good feedback that I was helping people. So that's what I would recommend. A really nice, information dense, low visual resume will help you put in more details.
Right, thanks.
No worries. Any other questions before I go on? Because this next part's going to be a lot more interactive than what we just went through, so I want to know if there's any questions. Okay, let's go on then. So, let me clean up my screen here. Alrighty, so I went and I found a bunch of resumes for us to go through together and details, and I'm now just going to go through, and if you have questions, please, speak up and go this, and I'm just going to give you my read on what's really important here, and we're just going to go through a lot of details. Again, every single person every single hiring manager has their own way of writing resumes. Sometimes it's very form letter S. Sometimes they put a lot of care into it. Sometimes they put almost no care at all. They just use what their previous manager did. And it can be the same manager who does multiple. Like I know for me, I'm going to be handwriting from the beginning, like my AI. I'm hiring an AI developer for my team. And I'm going to be writing that from the ground up. And I'm going to put a lot of care because it's going to be a hard position to fill. Versus my L1 position, I actually delegated that to one of my leads to go and write that just because it didn't matter as much. So it's, I wasn't going to have as much trouble hiring that position out, so it went elsewhere. So there's definitely a lot of variety. So let's go through this. Introduction, software development, IBM, and the background strategic initiatives here. This is all just boilerplate. It's a section that it's going to be the same every single time. It gives you absolutely no information about the organization. You can skip that section. This role. Okay, so here, somebody bolded and took time to say, this role is located in the IBM office in Research Triangle Park. That means you have to be in RTP for this to go here. So that's what's happening. There is no relocation funds to this role, so you will need to relocate at your own expense. Okay, I know this internally, that's not 100% true. Like, we won't call it a relocation package, but we'll give you a bonus that is effectively a relocation package. So it's technically right, but I wouldn't, if I were the hiring manager, I wouldn't have included this. IBM will not be providing visa sponsorship. That is important. So if you need a visa, not very good. This would not be a good role. During unusual times, remote work, all of them probably say that. So job description. This is the good stuff. As a cloud DevOps engineer, you will lead IBM into the future by translating system requirements into design and development of customized systems in an agile environment. Since the IBM is in your hands, your work will power IBM's clients globally, collaboration. Okay, some information. You will have access to the latest education. So everything but this first line is basically garbage. This is telling you it's an agile system. You're doing some work with design, nothing there. Job duties. Do you have a passion for learning? Yes, but that's not really helpful to us. Our cloud team is looking for a cloud DevOps engineer to help us further develop our strategic cloud technologies. You will be part of an open, transparent, agile organization who always thrives on continuous learning. You'll work with, here's the really important part here. You'll be part of a transparent, agile organization. I can't think of an organization that wouldn't say they're agile, not useful. But this is truly different. You'll be working with large data sets, big data, as well as legacy structured data warehouse environments. So this is a very data heavy position. If you're applying to this job, you need to be showing that you have worked with data sets before, that you have some capacity to do that, whether or not it's in a full stack capacity, SQL environment, whatever. But they're going to be asking about that. Work with high-performing DevOps to develop CI/CD pipelines, so using containerized technologies. To me, that says Kubernetes, CI/CD. You got to have that in your resume. Implement solutions that include data governance, real-time applications, parallel processing, revenue forecasting. Okay, this line is a little less important because you're starting to get into like examples of what you've done here. I've hired for positions like this. If you can't show you've worked with anything that looks like that, I'm not going to be concerned. But if you haven't worked with big data, and you haven't worked with continuous delivery or Kubernetes, that would be a problem. But if you haven't worked with these things, it's just extra stuff. I'm trying to capture keywords here as opposed to hiring for the position. So Implement applications with utmost importance to security. So, okay, security. So now we're starting to get to more, we're writing because we need additional stuff, there. So we have that in. So this is in the CIO. So this is a peer of mine or a peer of my, people who work with me. Okay, you can kind of see here, we got require technical. So let's use my rule of 3 to 4. Let's see how well it works. Minimum of 5 years of software development experience and support. Minimum of 2 years of experience in DevOps. Demonstrated communication. Modern DevOps practices. So, okay, so that's where I would cut it off. Let's see what it goes beyond that. Agile practices. Again, have you worked in an agile squad? Probably. That's all they're going to ask. Self-directed and accountable. Who wouldn't say this at a resume? Again, so we're getting down to details that you can just write off. Okay, now we're getting to stuff that's good to have. It says required, but this is where you should have some of these things, but if you don't have all of them, it's not a big problem. What's really the big one here, and honestly, if I were them, I would have thrown Kubernetes up at the top because that's what they really mean by DevOps. So with the exception of this one, everything else are just good to haves, things you should do. If you have cloud experience, it's going to help you get this position. If you've worked with CI/CD, which falls into DevOps, it's going to help you. If you can show experience with Linux, that's a really good thing. But so those are good, but if you don't have any one of those individual ones or only have them sparingly, that's not so much of a problem. But if you can't show a lot of experience in software, like you don't have that background, and you've never worked in DevOps, like this is your first job with DevOps, that would be a problem. Because again, I'm looking at this. This is not a junior DevOps engineer position. This is a DevOps position. So really, if you've never shown you've worked with it, if you don't have that technology in your background, if you don't have some of these technologies, this would not be a role you do super well with. Then you have your preferred technology. Elastic, Kafka, Spark. Again, nice to have. Some of these down here, quite honestly, could have gone into this section here. Really, these top 4 is what's really most important in here. Then we talk about the business unit, which again, it's boilerplate. It's not going to tell you anything about the position. Again, people who sit in my cloud team are going to be dramatically different than sits in the cloud team one office over, so that's not really going to help you do anything. Benefits being you. So, okay. So really, how much did we actually talk about there? First paragraph, first few lines. This is supporting information that you need, but wouldn't be helpful. All preferred. And also notice we're not even these folks didn't even put an education in the background. It doesn't really matter. And I don't do that either these days. So they don't even expect, you need a high school degree, but that's about it. So that's what I read out of this. Any questions, any comments, any concerns?
What you said with this one, they had the Kubernetes down towards the bottom. Would it be like maybe based off of their explanation of the job, you could kind of look at the requirements and pick out the requirements that are likely to be the main ones, because it wasn't up at the top, but it seems like it would be important since it's a DevOps job. So that may be requiring some interpretation, right?
This line right here tells me it. Again, they messed up by putting Kubernetes too deep in the middle. Work with high-performing DevOps teams developing continuous integration using containerization technology. Now, you read that and you may not see anything in that. I read that and go, oh, Kubernetes. That's what you mean. So they say DevOps there. So I'm looking for somebody who knows CI/CD patterns. I'm looking for someone who needs Kubernetes or OpenShift, or maybe something else. There are other technologies other than that. Like if you have Docker Swarm in your background, you know that. But I know that because of this line. And this is something that it's stuff that you can't say about every role that is the case. You work in an agile team is something everyone says. But because you're saying you're working with containerization technologies, that's the big one. Because that's not always true. But that's how I knew that Kubernetes was actually way more important here. It's not that Helm or Docker or anything else is there. It's not useful, but that's going to be the one that, like, if you don't know this for this job, you would have that. And the way you could figure that out is not by just reading this one job description. If you read other job descriptions, they would have Kubernetes way up at the top. So that's part of this. You never build a resume off of one job description. Pick out a dozen or so, read them, and pull out the common technologies that go there. If you would have pulled out the common technologies, you would have figured out that Kubernetes would have filled up at the top.
That actually brings me to a question I had earlier, but I was thinking maybe I'd wait to the end to ask. So thinking when you had mentioned that it's almost like, going to the grocery store and you have the boxes there that are trying to market themselves to different people.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of back to my business class days.
Yes.
And how before you start, when you're in the process of thinking about your product, you think about your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And the key points that you're going to, like the pain points that you're going to target, the key features, because you can't do everything, but you kind of pick the main ones that are going to be your strongest.
Yes.
So I was thinking, it seems like maybe that would be a good way to go about building out your resume, like keeping in mind the types of jobs you want to work for, the companies that you want to work for, and what they like and stuff, and then start actually being a little more targeted in your resume, like thinking hard about where exactly you want to work and what.
Right. Because here's the thing. Everyone in this room, your greatest asset you have is a weakness trying to apply to a job. Diverse background, interesting experiences, things that make you good teammates. Mm-hmm. Trust me, somebody who has a deep well of experience will do the job well, and they'll be hired. But if they can't branch out with the rest of the team, it's hard. Like I literally have the situation right now where I have someone who is a deep technical expert. He's smart as hell, and he doesn't mesh in with the team very well. And it's like, this is a smart guy. I want to redeploy him in a better way, but he just wants to go off in a corner, do his own thing. And it's just like, for my team, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So the best thing you guys have is the fact that you're going to fit into teams. You're going to challenge the ideas they have. You're going to challenge the concepts of how they run to the team, maybe bring a whole new slew of backgrounds, because the fact that you have a business background, you're going technology is, trust me, really useful. But when you're applying to the job, it means that it's hard for you to sell what that main thing is. You have to be very particular about how you sell. And this is, for me, what my biggest challenge was when I started applying to jobs. It was very, very hard for me to fit into one box. And it felt like I was kind of like, okay, well, you want me to, I feel like I'm cutting off an arm telling you about this, because here's this whole experience you know nothing about. And they do that. And the truth is that it was hard, but I finally realized that, again, we get like an hour or two. You if you are trying to apply to my job, you're going to get 2 hours with me max before I make a decision on whether or not I'm going to hire you. That is not a lot of time to go into stuff. So it's really need to know information. But if I get a sense you have other interesting things and you're good enough at whatever I'm hiring you for, I'll take the risk on you and say, yeah, add them to the team because I think they have something really unique to give. I've done this multiple times, and I got to say it has worked out so well. It has worked out so well to be able to do. That's a personal philosophy, but that's what I like doing. But that's the thing. You got to figure out how to fit into the boxes that are given. And the good news is they're going to give you the box. This is the box you're trying to fit. This is what you're going to do. And the truth is that if you don't fit into the job, it just may very well be the wrong role for you. That's the other thing to consider. Maybe you think you apply to an API role, but there's some technology you're consistently missing. You can go and get that experience. And then again, that's what I talk about with Schusterian, where it's like you can go find a micro experience to fill that in and get it. Or you can just decide, I'm looking for a different type of position and what you do. So does that help answer your question and give you some perspective? Awesome.
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome. What other questions or any other questions? Alrighty, let's go into a different position. Let's go someplace a little bit closer to home here. Let's do entry level front end developer 2022. So let me make sure that this is the one that I know. Okay, so this is the sort of information of long tail details that folks like you wouldn't know, but because I work in the industry, I know. This is not a real job description. Or let me say this. This is a real job description, but it is designed to be a feeder to other jobs. So, our organization like IBM has thousands of positions, and we see the market. We know what we need. For some positions, we know, hey, we need front-end developers, and we know so many different positions have that, and the requirements are so similar across the board. We know we're going to need a ton of people like that. And each individual recruiter is going to need additional candidates that they go through. They're going to need an additional database to come in. And so sometimes, instead of being tied to one individual position, it'll just be these feeders where they'll just spam them out and say, hey, we got this position. So here's kind of the telltale sign. First off, the job description looks really, really nice. Look at that. That's like 7 bullet points, 3 bullet points, 4. It's nice there. It's nicely detailed. There's no spelling errors or anything like that. It's very, very clean, which means somebody who really, really knew how to, basically not an engineering manager, not an engineering manager. Somebody was spending time and energy and dedicated to do this, where it's like they actually know how to write a resume. It's really, really clean. That's why they do this way. Multiple positions. This is the one sign, if you had to use anything, you could tell. If it ties to multiple positions, it's likely a feeder role. This doesn't tie to a single position, which again, there's good news and bad news about this. The good news is if you apply to this and you happen to hit whatever they're looking for internally, they could very well be, there could be a special project they're looking for people with a particular background or, particular set of skills. You apply to this and you get super, you get wide exposure. That can happen. More often than not, you get lost in the system though. So I would not spend a lot of time applying. I would apply to these, but don't write the cover letters. Don't spend a lot of time doing this. Like, it's once you already identified 6 or 7 roles you want to apply to, or maybe a dozen roles you do, throw in a few of these just because it's a give me at that point, but don't expect too much out of it to go through. So your start date for this position is January 24 and later. Again, there's not an exact start date there. What you'll see for other positions, like the one before that, there's an exact position. It's an exact role. There's RTP. It can't be New York. It can't be this, or maybe 2 positions, right? New York and Austin, that sort of thing. It won't be a list like this. Teams are located in only a few places. They may not be the best written. You may actually be even a little confused at some points. Again, that's a real engineering manager writing and trying to talk to you. That's, again, I would edit it a little bit more, but at least it's a sign that it's realistic. And also, it's a little bit vague. Like here, let's take a look at this position together. Have passion and experience for building responsive, elegant there. Work closely with designers on wireframes there. JavaScript, no. Again, for you guys, you don't notice it. To me, it's a little bit too clean. And it's not very specific on a particular thing. Like, real projects know their requirements, that they're going to say, you're going to work on legacy infrastructure. Which, again, that's not a fun thing, but it's a thing that's necessary. Or deep financial experience, or this. There's a lot of details. Here, they're really just talking about, like, the ideal, like Plato's front end, Plato's entry-level front-end developer, where they're looking for all these different skills here. So I would say don't read into this too much on what they're doing. And I would, it's a good place to start because these are great things. So here's the thing. You must have CSS, UI, JavaScript, Node, React, Viewer, familiarity. Also, I mean, you look at that. Look at how small that required technical section is. Just barely anything there. Some knowledge of Backbone and everything. So it tells you there. So it's like the basics, on what you have there. Won't get you, if you base a resume off of this, you just look very generic. But it's a good thing to know. So anyway, I went through this very quickly, but I think it would be cool for you to see what a position like this looked like. Any questions about this one? Nope. Okay, we'll continue going. All right, full stack developer. Let's see if this is a real position here. I want to do that. Yeah, I think this one, I think I looked at this one yesterday. Yeah, this one's real. Okay. Full stack developer, Java microservices, junior position. Okay, so as an application developer, you will lead IBM's future, so ignore that. IBM is immediate opening for application specialist. Our clients are some of the world's leading. Okay, so that's not there. Okay, this line. As an application development specialist, you'll be expected to provide development, support, and delivery services for complex client applications. This role requires a broad knowledge of troubleshooting and resolving issues, work across teams to develop and implement solutions, and provide technical support and consultation. Successful candidates in these positions will work on-site at the IBM Client Innovation Center on Monroe, Louisiana. The IBM Client Innovation Center is inbound delivery model, which supports clients. So this one is actually really information dense. And you can tell because there's a lot of specific details on what you're going to be doing that is beyond the role, right? You are expected to travel 50%. You're working on Monroe. The innovation lab does this, and details. It's just giving you an idea. Although we are currently, you must live or be willing to locate to Louisiana within 30 days of the office. This is not a permanent work from home position. And what I really like about this is how short this section is. Not as short as the previous section, but like there is barely more than 3 to 4 here. So 1 year of experience with Java, 1 year experience with Spring, MySQL, developing microservices, agile knowledge, strong verbal communication, preferred technical, Salesforce, AWS, Bitbucket, Jira, whatever. It's kind of a perfect resume, or there, it gives you a good idea. So you need to have Java or Spring. Let me put it this way. If you apply to this job, and you didn't have Java, maybe not Spring, but if you didn't have Java, it wouldn't be worth it for you to apply to this, to do that. Because they are asking for some working knowledge, or at least, like I said, 1 year maybe tells me that maybe a boot camp would do well. Maybe you could do a boot camp and maybe that would have that. But you would have to have pretty strong project experience and demonstrated experience to get that case there. MySQL, they could live without. You would need to answer questions on microservice framework. Like you need to know, like I would go into this interview knowing you can talk about the microservices framework. I mean, that's the thing. They said so little, so the only stuff they're going to ask you is really within this page, maybe a little bit more, but you should be able to explain what a microservice framework does. Why would you use that versus some other framework? You should know other frameworks that you can talk about. Maybe not to like a deep expert level, but certainly enough that you can explain the pros and cons. Everyone's going to say strong verbal communication. That doesn't matter. This is almost none of this matters, except maybe this. If you have Salesforce, definitely recommend do that. If you have AWS, do that. They give you so little here, you may want to fill in, but you kind of know where they want to show you. You can show you're building applications, that really helps. If you can show that you use MySQL and you set up your own databases, that'll help. If you can show you've used a framework, particularly in Java, it'll help. But that's good stuff there. And again, business unit, all this, you can ignore that. So really, it's just everything you see on the pages really matters. So very, very useful. So this one's actually, I like this. Maybe a little bit more detail here, but it's overall useful. So anyway, any questions here or thoughts? All right, let me do one more and we'll see, and then I'll open it up to general questions here. So co-ops and the CIO. So I've heard a lot of these here, and this is something that I've seen where I have yet to see someone coming out of a boot camp. Okay, that's not exactly true. I've met one or two people, but they network to get their role. Successfully get an internship, co-op, apprenticeship, that sort of model. I've seen people get junior level positions. I've seen people get mid-level positions out of a boot camp. But I've yet to see people actually get out of this. So you can kind of see what we're doing that. Usually these positions are usually done with, candidates in mind. So like school semester, up to 40 hours per week. They're doing internship programs, things like that. So you may see things like that and think, oh, wouldn't it be good if I could get that? But you honestly may not be the right person to apply to this. They're usually looking for college kids because they got a very specific idea in mind on what they're doing. But even still, it's useful to see what they're asking for here. Design and implement front-end web development, so HTML5, CSS, back-end development with Golang or Node, implementing APIs there, supporting OpenShift and Kubernetes, so you're doing containerized applications. You're on an on-call rotation there. You're doing GitHub pull requests, things like that. Honestly, this is a pretty good resume to go off of. If somebody had to pick only a few resumes to base pick a few descriptions to base their resume off of, this has got a pretty good mix here. I would say most positions are going to be asking for this. Showing a good experience with CI/CD is helpful. Showing that you've dealt with a GitHub workflow is really useful. That would help. Showing that you've implemented APIs and you understand that is really useful. You have required technical knowledge, CI/CD, Ansible. Yeah, I'd say this is a pretty modern stack here on the direction. So I would, even though this is not a position I would say you guys should be applying to, it's definitely a position that, if you needed to build up your experience, you could use this as a guide because these are really, really common technologies, but not so overwhelming that you couldn't really apply them. So again, another way to be able to read this. Again, up here, not super useful. Down here, not super useful. And then let's do another one real quick here. So front-end application developer. Responsibilities: design, plan large, complex web applications, including single-page applications. So they're looking for SPAs. They work with multiple track projects per day on a basis. So they want to know you've worked on Teams before, that you've worked on that. Again, not super specific, but whatever. Ability to play client-facing. That's important because they want you to be a client-facing role, and that's not something you're always going to see with a job description, especially in software. Sometimes you're going to see a position can just be back-end. They know you want to they want to know you're personable, but sometimes you're doing a back-office software job. This is front-facing. You have to deal with client relationships. This I can already tell is not really super useful, so I'm going to do that. This is the only one that I'm at odds with, which is they're asking for 4 years experience with at least 2 years of building web applications, they definitely want you to build single page applications. So you should show experience with, your language and do that. But again, design and plan large and complex web pages, including focus on single page application. That's just a really crappy line. I mean, with the way they're doing that, I don't know what they're looking for here. I guess there can be some complex single page applications, but single page applications are supposed to be simple by nature. So I'm not exactly sure what they're doing. But what really gets me is this. You can't expect somebody to have large, complex web applications with 4 years of experience. That's more of a 5+ year sort of thing, and it's more of a senior level position to get in architecture. So this is where, too, you need to read between the lines here and what they're doing. Because if you read lots and lots of descriptions, you'll see a certain number of years start to emerge and jobs. This is an outlier. Designing web applications with this little bit of experience, especially with the use of complex, not something I would highly recommend they put in. So I would say this is more of a mid-level teaming on junior level position. Again, they're using expert in design, expert in E5, whatever. Again, this position, whoever is asking for this in North Carolina, is using this term expert for a number of years. That's not appropriate. You're looking for working knowledge on pretty much everything here. Maybe you need somebody with a specialty in one thing, but else you're there. But pretty much, I would say, don't worry about the number of years. You would definitely need these few things. I would definitely say in your resume you've dealt with ES5 and ES6. They say ES5 plus, but for some reason they keep saying, I would say, you might say ES6, but I would say ES5, and you can talk about that. You can talk about that experience and put that in. And then there's some other stuff here, really like working knowledge of web optimization strategies. That's just good experience. So if you've dealt with projects that put that in, having a line item talking about how you've optimized your work, how you've optimized for, the different applications is useful. They have a bunch of, tools that they put in there. So I would say you definitely worked with these if you've done them. You can skill stack where you've said, oh, I've worked with this tech and this tech and this tech, and that might be effective here. And then also you're seeing this is a travel position, so very much a consulting role. So I'm getting that this is a consultant, client facing, bunch of different technologies. And I think that's the reason they keep putting expert, because they want to put you in front of a client as the expert. And they kind of forget that that's the number of levels they're asking for is not close to that, to do that. But anyway, this would be a position you kind of know, so you can use these details to parse it out. So these sections are actually quite good. Down here, less important than up here. So that's where I would, that's what I read out of this. So let me pause. I have others I can go through, but honestly, this is about to get into the end of our time, and I kind of wanted to give you guys a few moments for some questions.
Hi. Thank you so much, Brian. That was
Sure.
really helpful. As someone who can definitely get lost in job descriptions. I just had a question kind of about the resumes we were talking about. When by the time you get resumes, has it been like parsed through a system, like kind of like an ATS system?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know a place where you can I think I've seen one before, but I don't know if I've seen one recently where you can kind of see how a system would parse your resume?
That's a good question. I don't know. Personally, I would, if you're really interested in getting feedback on that, I would meet with an external recruiter, and really network with those folks, and they'll be really easy to network with, and ask them what the tools they see, or if they can read it and get a critical eye. Quite honestly, now again, I'm hiring mostly for mid-level to senior level engineers, and I'm hiring for a role that doesn't have a lot of junior engineers. There are not a lot of our juniors are like mid-level engineers, software engineers who are making a career change. So I get a lot less. So there's very few resumes that come in that I don't ever see. You really only have to worry about that sort of system if you're applying to a job that has like the co-op I showed you that had 250 applications,
right,
to be able to do that. So I would say talk with a recruiter who's willing to give you time, and maybe they have a tool to do that. But quite honestly, I would make sure you have a mix of roles where that ATS doesn't play a major factor. There are positions you can see on LinkedIn where you're applying to less. And that means if you're applying to exclusively those sorts of roles, they're going to be junior level, they're going to be national roles, and they're going to be things that you're not you may be well suited for, but you're competing against lots of people. You should have a fair mix of roles where you're one of a few people applying to the position, you know, maybe not like a tiny number, but like dozens as opposed to hundreds. And if neither of those are giving you the look, then maybe it's worth going back to the resume and figuring out, is there something off-putting about what I'm saying? Or is there something mistake I mix? Yeah.
Right.
What other questions, guys?
Do you have example resume, like the one that you like for, you said heavy, intense information?
Oh,
but I can
yes, I
also in a
do.
short
Oh, I'm okay. I'm going to. Yes, I do. Give me a second here. There is somebody here. Let me move this off. There is somebody who just sent me a resume that was one of the best resumes I saw. And so I may have to cut this section here because I won't say her name because I didn't ask her permission, so I'll ask her permission afterwards, but I will share it with you guys here. So here's an example of that resume. Let me share my screen. This is the example of what I used. This is not a really innovative format. There's not a lot going on, but it is dense, dense, dense. The font is small. The format is done really, really well. Their details are, there. I mean, for one page, she put a lot. You even see here, she has 2 lines there for a professional certificate at the bottom. To this, I looked at this and my engineering manager brain just lit up as good. Like, I wasn't even reading the detail, but I looked at it and went, man, that's dense. There's just so much going on. I do that. And then as I go down, I'm even getting better feel into this. Like, oh my Lord, IBM Cognos, Chilo, areas of exploration. She even figured out how to put like what she's studying down. And honestly, I love this line. I'm going to start telling people to do this, where it's like, hey, you want to talk about you're doing stuff, but you don't want to lie about it. Areas of exploration. It's a tiny line. So this is the format I would say you would go for and what you do. And she even had the format. There's only one recommendation I would have for her. Put the education down at the bottom to do this. Put the skills at the top. And everything else is in the correct format, basically. She sacrificed the summary section, but in favor of a summary section, she just put more examples of the good work she was doing, which is the best reason not to put a summary section. It could be quite honest. She highlighted, she talked and everything. So that's what I would say. If you're struggling with space, find an information dense format like this. And I'll have to go and ask her if I can get to talk. Otherwise, this is just going to be a black screen when I talk about it. But this is what you should be looking at. It's really something. So does that help, Ming?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyway, we're at the end of time, but I can keep going. It's been a very slow Friday, thankfully. My team's doing a good job holding fort down. What else can I answer?
Hey, Brian, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I'm reading these resumes, and you're saying that sometimes you have to, there's some expertise that you may not already acquired, some skills that you haven't acquired, but those are things that you can kind of learn along. Is there any way that you can know if a company will train you for those things?
It depends on the role and it depends on the technology. Let me give you an example. Let me answer by giving you an example. So now not most recent hire, but the first hire I made in RTP was actually a bootcamp graduate. He had a PO background. He was started off as basically driving a forklift for FedEx and grew in their organization, wanted to make a transition. He actually was a full stack developer, but he ended up learning those containerization services, technologies. He learned it. He learned Kubernetes, he learned CI/CD, and he learned that tech, but he had no professional experience with it. It was only side projects, but they were good side projects. So anywho, I'm in the technical interview with the team, and I have 3 of my engineers who work in RTP, and they're basically drilling him, and they're asking questions, and they're going through, and they're getting deeper and deeper with it. And then afterwards, they come back, And I asked them what they feel, and they said, well, he didn't know anything about enterprise stuff. But at the same time, you can't learn enterprise unless you're working in enterprise. I mean, there's certain things, and they recognize it. They know the only place you're really going to get enterprise is if you work for a big organization. But on the stuff he could have done on his own, on the technology he could have learned on his own, he went as far as he possibly could to learn that technology. He left no stone unturned, really. He spun up his own cluster. He made his own CI/CD. He rebuilt his application multiple times to fit into that framework. He continued to learn there. And that was impressive. And so the answer to your question, yes, companies will teach you some of the stuff that you don't know. Like I said, 50% is not atypical for someone coming into a role, and usually I can make up the experience by saying, you have a deep background, you have a shallow background in the technology, but you have an interesting mix of tech. You mesh well with the team. I see a lot of potential in you, whatever it might be, to let you come into the team. But if you say, oh, I want to learn Kubernetes, and you don't take it as far as you can, that's going to be not a red flag, but it's very common. People say, I don't know Kubernetes. Well, why not? You can go study on your own. You can go learn that tech. You can go spin up a free cluster. You can go, there's a website where you can spin up a Docker file, that sits inside Kubernetes there. You can take it as far as you can on your own, do that study there, and show that you have this passion. And then when it comes out, you can say, look, I don't know how to deal with multi-cluster. I'm not going to spend $3,000 a month to do that on my own, but I did it as much as I could here, and here's what I learned. I learned about how, master nodes basically, distribute workloads. I learned about service mesh. I learned about these new technologies there. So that's what I would say. So more often than not, don't rely on organizations teaching you the big stuff. Show that you're willing to take it as far as you can. And that drive becomes way more at the end of what makes us interested in you. That's what made me interested in this guy. And so far, he's been a fantastic hire.
Awesome. That's what I say most of the time too, that most of these things kind of depend on you and what you showcase. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Of course.
An awesome demonstration. That was great. Thank you.
I'm glad this is helpful. All right, guys, what other questions? What else do you got for me?
Thank you so much for sharing this. It's been really good. It really hit on, I think, the key concerns, because I think it really seems like a big ocean.
Yeah. And
you're just swimming. And I feel like this kind of gives you more of a sense of direction and some maybe you can set your sail towards a particular target. Yeah. And instead of trying to think of, I need to just get somewhere out here, I'm going towards this particular goal. And it's a little less scary than when you have that sense of navigation.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I would like to say thank you as well. You provided some real world examples, and thanks Crystal and Ming and Denny and the others for the good questions to bring that out.
I'm glad. Yeah, thank you very much. It's been very engaging, so I appreciate it, folks.
And would you be interested in? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Crystal. Just want to show my appreciation.
Would you be interested in, if going forward we get some questions, or if people are looking for a bit of direction in the future, if we could reach out to you from time to time or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two ways you can connect with me to be able to do that. One of them is definitely LinkedIn, and I am just constantly posting. LinkedIn's basically my main platform for being able to post stuff. So I will answer questions in the open. I probably spend at least an hour a day responding to messages on my LinkedIn profile to do that. So let me just go. Where's the chat box here? Security, polls, stop, pause, breakout room. Okay, here it is. Okay, so you can connect with me here. that'll be one way. You can send me a request, ask for that. If you have questions, I'm answering them. I'm answering them constantly. Even better, ask them out in the open, because I love being able to go onto my feed and comment and do stuff there. Show me what you're doing. Show me what you're working on. There you can ping me and show that. I love doing that. That's been my favorite way. The other thing that I've been doing is I host live streams pretty frequently, actually, or at least substack.com. That's my Substack, actually. So here, let me get it to be a link. I host live streams. I have a newsletter that comes out every Saturday that answers questions here. I have a podcast here. I mean, honestly, if you write me a question, I really like it, I'll do a video and I'll post it on my YouTube channel, and you can go and watch it. To do that, I will go and ask you to have calls. I'll do live streams and things like that. So really, I'm really focused on, really getting you guys into the industry. That's really what I'm focused on. How do I give you that pathway? How do I take all this information, package it up in a good way for you to do, and allow you to be able to do something with it? So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Substack, and that should be enough places for you to get in contact with me. There's lots more, but we'll just start there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Alrighty. Well, folks, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Awesome. Alrighty. Reach out if you have questions. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.